All right, I got a completely hypothetical scenario here, and that's not like sometimes I'm being sarcastic and tongue-in-cheek. Totally hypothetical. This has not happened. This is not my family. This is not a family I know about. I'm just briefly brainstorming a scenario, hoping that I can likewise the heck out of what we're going to look at in Matthew 28 here in just a minute. It may or may not work. I haven't really tried this yet. Okay, imagine there is a family. And this family, it's mom and dad and some kids, and they're about to go on a road trip. And two of the kids are real excited about the road trip, but you got a teenager, and they're in a real moody phase right now. Like they're wearing their hair down over their eye, and they skulk and slump around and stuff, and they just stare at their phone all the time. It's a good kid. They're just not in the best place right now mentally, and they've got something going on in their social world that they really want to be there for, and is super important at noon the next day. But we got to leave on this road trip at like 8 in the morning the next day to get where we need to be. And so the night before the trip is a big blow up. Everything gets weird. And the kid is like, well, maybe I'll just take the key and throw it away so I can go to the thing and then tell you where it is after. And mom and dad are like, that actually sounded a little bit like a viable threat. So like, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to lock up the keys to the family vehicle here in this gun safe that only mom and I know the combination to because we're responsible parents and gun owners. The keys are going to be in there on complete lockdown. And at 7:59 a.m. tomorrow, when everyone is loaded up in the vehicle with the windows that are covered with all the decals from all the places we've already been, we'll get the key out of the safe and we will get in the vehicle and we will go on our trip. And I'm sorry that you won't be able to go to your friend thing, but next time around, you'll be able to get it in. And so that night, you go to where the gun safe is and you open it up and you put the keys to the family vehicle in there and you lock it and you make sure it's all fastened and locked. And sure enough, and wife checks it. Sure enough, that is locked. Nobody else knows that combination. No way. You can't risk that kind of stuff. You wake up in the morning at 7:59. The kids are loaded up and you get ready to go. And you go to the safe and you enter the combination and you open the safe. But there are no keys in there. Well, what the heck just happened? Now, let's just game this out a little bit here from a perspective of motives, which is my goal with this story. But first, from the physical perspective, the keys were locked up. In this scenario, assume that it's just maximum locked up, like a really, really legit, heavy-duty, bought it at the fancy sporting goods store. And nobody's going to be able to just jimmy that thing open or whatever. We double-checked, triple-checked to make sure that the thing was definitely locked. We're going to assume nobody broke in and that it was definitely latched, no user error. The keys were in there, snug as a bug in a rug, shouldn't have gone anywhere. So there's no rational physical explanation for how those keys got moved apart from either mom did it or dad did it because they're the only ones who know the combination. Now, immediately, you can reason to what the problem with that theory or accusation is. Mom and dad are in lockstep on this. They spent money on a family vacation. They have to be somewhere. They want to be in that place. It's going to cost them money. They're going to have to cancel reservations, miss a flight if they don't get out the door. This is a massive issue for them. Neither of them then has any motivation to go smuggling those keys out of there when the other one is asleep late at night to sow chaos. Kiddo, well, they're super happy to see that now, well, we just can't find the keys. It's 11:45 now. We're still looking for the keys. I'm just going to go to this event from noon to 1. Looks like it's going to be well into the afternoon before we can go anyway. They're happy. And so they would have loved to have stolen the keys, I guess, but they can't get into it. So in other words, the two people who had the ability to remove the keys from the safe had less than zero motivation to remove the keys from the safe, and the person who had the motivation to remove the keys from the safe had less than zero ability to remove the keys from the safe. So in this scenario, what happened? Well, that's where the analogy breaks down. I guess God took the keys into heaven, or I don't know. That part doesn't work, but that never was the point. Likewise, in Matthew chapter 28, we're getting a scenario that is gifted to us by the Pharisees taking this extra step to try to make sure that there would be no confusion about the fact that Jesus is dead and stayed dead. They went to the governor. They appealed for a special guard to be placed. The governor, who just doesn't care about anything anymore, is just fine. Seal it up as best as you know how. Make sure it's thorough. Wouldn't want any more trouble for you guys. So they do. They put guards out there. And then the body goes away anyway, which creates our conundrum. Because in this scenario, with Jesus' body being under Roman guard and covered by a great big giant heavy rock that normal people can't move, especially discreetly or under cover of darkness, this is going to be too much of a racket to get away with what it would take to make something like that happen. So because of this scenario that has been created, we got to deal just like the thing with the family. Those people who would have the ability to have access to the body and steal it away have less than zero motivation to steal the body away. They need the body to stay there. It's very important to their case. The people who might have motivation to steal the body away have no access or ability to steal the body away. This, to me, is one of the most basic equations that the gospel writers leave us to run for ourselves as we get done reading each of their 4 successive documents. The fact that Jesus was taken by Joseph of Arimathea under the approval of Pontius Pilate with the knowledge of the religious leadership who tried to make a counter move in kind is not disputed. Early Jewish sources who were very hostile to the whole Jesus thing, they totally agree on this. Josephus agrees on this. Jesus was buried in a tomb. A member of the Sanhedrin, Joseph of Arimathea, with the help of another religious leader, Nicodemus, took the body, expensively had the body cared for and prepared, and then put in an expensive tomb that then got sealed up under Roman guard. As we discussed the other day, Roman guards ain't messing around, but that might not be something that would be common knowledge to a modern reader, but to the original audience, even before these books of the Bible were written, they knew how much that meant business. And you might as well just have a giant 2-ton safe that's uncrackable. You're not getting into that with a group of ragtag fishermen disciples. And further, let's just look at how the disciples are behaving at this point. Do the disciples seem like a well-organized Ocean's 11 style squad that is sent to use their youngest, smallest, supplest member to get in through some kind of air vent and then avoid all of the laser detection while sneaking around in there so the Roman guards don't hear him, and then somehow to get the body all ready to go and hoist it up on his shoulder and get everything folded up, and just at that moment, the first century equivalent of Saul Bloom fakes a heart attack in front of the guards, and then Danny Ocean and Rusty Ryan run in there and act like paramedics, and now they're even more distracted. And then Virgil and Turk real quick snipe the little birds and forest creatures that would make noise to alert the Roman guards of what was going on. And then Basher blows open the door with explosives and they're all out of there and the guards are incapacitated with the karate chops to the neck. And then they just go off and just kind of wait for a while. It doesn't seem like they had the capacity or organization or mindset to do this at all. Remember, they all left. Only John showed up incognito even at the crucifixion. They couldn't stay awake for an hour to stand guard, not proactively go do something to help Jesus. They couldn't even passively do something that involved just sit there and look forward. They couldn't even muster that in his hour of greatest need. These guys are a mess. They are a wreck. They are disoriented. They are not hatching an elaborate heist scheme to make this thing go. Nothing about the account we're getting or what we know about human behavior would indicate that that's where they are. Now, I think what we're wrestling with right here is what Matthew wants the reader of this document to wrestle with. He wants you to come to it and be like, man, I know Jesus did a lot of cool things. I know he did that in front of a lot of people. I know he seemed very, very smart and cool and different from like everybody and all the other characters. I know that he held himself out as being the fulfillment of all these things about life and death and bridging the gap between God and man and defeating death, all of that stuff from the Old Testament. I know that. I know he fits perfectly into what is described as being the Messiah. And I know that he said that he was going to come back to life and that he demonstrated power over death, but still, that's a lot, and I can't help but come at this a little skeptically, says the reader of Matthew, because you're asking me to believe that a guy came back from the dead 3 days after being executed. But then Matthew seems to be saying, okay, counter move, though. Where'd the body go? You've heard the accusations, says older author Matthew, that the disciples came and stole the body away. Well, reader, does that make sense to you? This tomb was made as secure as anybody knew how to make a tomb. The people who had the access to make that body go away had less than zero motivation to make the body go away. The people who might have had an interest in making the body go away, though there's no indication of that, even if they did have such a scheme, they had no ability to do so because of who they were and what they were up against the religious leadership, up against the Roman police state. It ain't happening. Heck, up against a giant rock. It ain't happening. Matthew wants the official line from the religious leadership that had been proliferated for decades to stick in the reader's craw, and indeed I think it does. Okay, last thing on the way out the door. I am a little bit ahead of you right now. I'm starting to work on actually recording the new stuff, the new series. It starts on January 2nd, and that is an adventure, my friends. It's a lot to try to cover that, like a whole book of the Bible, I mean, in 10-ish minute chunks worth of content. And wow, I have bit off a lot here, but it's going to work. It's really fun to just have to distill it. Yeah, I'm starting on Genesis. That's a big book. And I've read it several times in anticipation of just this one day's episode. And I think all this time in Genesis has given me a good sense of what we can get done in one of these episodes and what we can't. The goal is not to give you a comprehensive treatment of Genesis. The goal is basically to give you, like, here's the basics. Here are the important themes. Here's why this is in the Bible. And very importantly, here's how this fits into the whole cohesive story and set of ideas of the Bible. But this is what's crazy. It's already working on me because I'm cheating ahead and I get to do this before you do because, I have to make it. It's already working on me. And I got all these things now back through Matthew where I'm like, whoa, I see this connection right here between this parable and this thing, this just obscure little detail back in Genesis, but it's there. Or, whoa, look at this gigantic theme in Genesis that I've never thought about and how that connects with stuff in the Gospels. And I'm going to do my best to grab onto those little nuggets where I can and make those connections, even if it's kind of quick. But all of this is just to say I'm working on it and I'm really excited about it. But we got huge, important stuff about Matthew that we still need to tackle here. And just like I'm just giving you a hint, there's going to be 5 bonus episodes on Matthew at the end of the month, but they're not really bonus episodes. They're going to be numbered episodes that come out over the weekend of New Year's Eve because I really want to get this to 800. And I really need 5 more episodes to cover everything that I want to cover. So just like if you just plan that in for the end of the year, that'd be great. If you're listening in real time. If you're not, wow, there goes like 3 minutes of your life you're never getting back. All right, more on the Matthew stuff tomorrow. I'm Matt. This is the 10 Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.